Hello, church. This is a follow-up from the sermon preached on March 20th, where we were talking about getting a heavenly body. And one of the questions that I got after the sermon and even during, just as I was talking to people, was, when do I get my heavenly body? When do we actually get the spiritual body? Do I get it the moment I die? Do I get it when Jesus Christ returns? Do I get it at some other time? And so let's answer that question. So we're going to go through a couple texts and see if we can get an answer. The first one is 1 John chapter 3, verse 2. It says, "Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not yet been made known, but we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is." So when the appearing of Christ comes, we will be like him. We've got at least that much, that at the latest, you're going to get your heavenly body when Christ returns. All right, let's keep going. 1 Corinthians 15, 51 through 54. Through 52. "Listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed." So in 1 Corinthians 15, there it's tying the return of Christ with the changing. That is, the new body is coming at Christ's coming. So now those two events have been tied together. And that's not the only place we see that. Another place we see that is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 13 through 18. "Brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about those who sleep in death." So the Thessalonians had some questions. What's going to happen to those people who believe in Jesus, but right now are in the grave? So he says, "So that you do not grieve like the rest of mankind who have no hope, for we believe that Jesus died and rose again. And so we believe that God will bring with Jesus those who have fallen asleep in him. According to the Lord's word, we tell you that we who are still alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will certainly not precede those who have fallen asleep." So those who have fallen asleep, that is, those who have died before the return of Christ, are going to come first, and those who are still alive when Christ returns are going to be second. Verse 16, "For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of an archangel, and with the trumpet call of God. And the dead in Christ will rise first. And after that, we who are still alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we will be with the Lord forever." So he's talking about the resurrection of the dead, that is going to happen at the return of Christ. We will see them, which means that they're going to have a physical form in the clouds, and we know from the 1 Corinthians passage that it'll happen then, that's when we'll all be changed. So if we could take these texts, they would tell us that we are going to receive a spiritual, imperishable, glorious body at the return of Christ. Well then, what about right now? All of those who have died in Christ, if they don't have their heavenly body and they don't have their earthly body, what is happening to them? There's one other text that really helps us to understand that question. It's 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 2 through 4. "For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands." Now, we have to understand that in this passage, Paul is using the word tent and house, not to refer to some other building. He's talking about your body. And he's calling this a tent, meaning it's temporary. It's not meant to last forever. And that in heaven, spiritually speaking, we have a house, we have a body in heaven, a spiritual body waiting for us. And it's a house, it's a permanent dwelling. It's going to last forever. It's in every way better than the tent. You could compare this to your future body by thinking of a tent versus a home, right? That's the difference. Meanwhile, verse 2, we groan. Why do we groan? Groan, longing to be clothed instead with our heavenly dwelling. What that means is that in this life, this body, we can't wait for it to go away and for it to be replaced with a heavenly body. We want that future dwelling. Verse 3, because when we are clothed, we've got the body on right now, we're wearing it, we're clothed in it, we will not be found naked. It's really interesting. We'll come back to that word. For while we are in this tent, we groan and are burdened because we do not wish to be unclothed. There it comes again, this idea of naked or unclothed, but instead to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling. So he's saying twice that we are groaning. We don't want to wear this. We don't want the tent. We want the heavenly body. But in between both, he says we don't want to, he says we don't want to be found naked, that we don't want to be unclothed. And this is really important because it means that in between taking off the earthly tent and putting on the heavenly tent, we are found for a time to be unclothed. We are found for a time to be naked. Scholars and theologians call this the intermediate state. And the idea is that in heaven right now, all those who have died in Christ are in his presence. They're experiencing eternal perfection and joy and bliss in God's presence. But they are still waiting for their spiritual heavenly bodies. They are still waiting to be clothed. That right now they are unclothed. Right now that they're naked. And so now we have kind of like three states that you can be in. At the present, you and I are wearing our earthly tents. If we die and Christ doesn't come back right away, we will be found naked. We'll be unclothed. But when he returns, we will be clothed with our perfect heavenly bodies. So it's the intermediate state. It just means that you and I were made to have a body, and we'll have a body for all eternity, but for a little while, some of us, those who have passed away and are in Christ, they're waiting. And that's what in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 2-4, that idea of being found naked or being unclothed, that's what that's about. So that might lead to more questions for you than answers. I know the first time that I was introduced to this doctrine, which happened to me in seminary, I was like, whoa, what is happening? I had never heard about this. And so there you have it. You can continue to read up on it. Not all theologians think that's real, that's going to happen. So a lot of people think that you will get your body instantly. From the other texts, it seems to say that we'll get it when Christ returns, but hey, that's not super important. This isn't one of those big issues. This is a little issue. We don't know. And this is just kind of where I'm at with the study of it, and I hope it was helpful for you. God bless.